So we got a whole elevator of fans. Say hi, fans.
Hi.
We're on the way to Streacom, by the way. And we got a nice little entourage too. What's up, good people? I'm Dmitry, and as always, we come to you from Streacom. They always have something incredible. So they do have a new ITX enclosure, the DA2. So let's check it out now. But first, a message from our sponsors. Thanks to Thermaltake, Cooler Master, and Fantex for making this trip possible. All right, guys, you know how much I love ITX enclosures, and Streacom with their DA2 is here to impress. This is quite a popular sort of form factor with this beautiful aluminum construction. You know, nobody comes even close to Streacom's quality control and their like elegance. And this is something that I really appreciate. Plus, with this new ITX design and revamped internals, they're really trying to push this whole space optimization with like extremely modular elements to the next level. So it is a pretty compact ITX enclosure with this beautiful bent aluminum shell. If you love simplicity, you would definitely appreciate the I/O, which only has a power button that has an LED, and they can also potentially put logos on the button as well, and a single Type-C connection for the I/O. They are thinking of a tempered glass option with this unique magnetic mount. It's currently a work in progress, but potentially put one on the sides, light it up, showcase the hardware. And even though we have this sort of closed look, both the top and bottom are completely perforated and are covered with this dust filter. And you remove it by flexing the filter, which is a cool approach because it means the enclosure can remain super elegant, no additional little brackets and clips necessary. It is a totally toolless approach, and I hope more companies take the note. Now, the default side panels are completely perforated with a dust filter built in underneath. And so the cool thing about these is how they are actually mounted onto the enclosure via press fit. So you install the top section first, and then you mount the bottom, and it kind of like latches onto the frame. Again, a completely toolless procedure, no additional clips required. Lovely. Now, what Streacom is doing on the internals is actually pretty clever. They're thinking in this like cubular three-dimensional format and wanted a no compromise system. So you can mount an ATX power supply or radiators up to 280 millimeters and GPUs up to 350 millimeters. Because of this new rail system, which has been simplified with these captive square nuts on both sides and these new universal brackets. The top ones are slightly shorter, but the sides ones are slightly longer to accommodate for dimensions of the enclosure. And so these brackets can be installed along the length of the case and the height of the case, and each bracket can support one SSD, or you combine two of them to create like a little rack of SSDs or hard drives or anything else that you might mount in there. It's pretty clever, and doesn't give you any limitations in terms of where you want to mount it, aside from having clearance for the other hardware. So for example, if you mount an ATX power supply, you have about 220 millimeters for the GPU clearance, and up to a single 140 or 120 rad for the CPU cooling. If you are installing a CPU tower, you have 145 millimeters of clearance for that. We do have a rear 90 millimeter fan mount for a little additional either intake or exhaust. And we also have this power supply bracket for either SFX or ATX. For storage, you can mount 3 3.5-inch drives or 8 2.5-inch drives on a single drive bracket, which is pretty incredible. And the modularity element doesn't stop there, because you can actually invert or rotate the motherboard tray, because the actual motherboard is mounted on those universal brackets that have the motherboard standoffs. So you could rotate the rear panel of the frame to accommodate the motherboard being on the opposite side and it being inverted. And so that is the DA2. I love how they've simplified those universal brackets, yet it still has that Streacom DNA, because that's what they're all about, using brackets to mount any hardware for flexibility. They also will have the DB2, which is a completely passive case utilizing the exact same chassis, but with giant basically heatsink panels on both sides, so you can cool the CPU and the GPU on the DB2. All right, so that is the Streacom DA2, or as we call it in this suite, DA2. But now let's go check out another piece of really innovative engineering for your hardware, the concept case that they call the canvas. So we're gonna do a little bit of reveal, okay? So right now you can see just a piece of glass here. We just have this plain canvas with a little cable sticking out, but now if Mike, if you come around, we can reveal what this case is all about. All right, my friends, so this is the canvas case. It's still in early stages, prototyping. We definitely want to hear your feedback, but from what we've just experienced here, it is absolutely incredible. So they're totally redesigning how you're assembling your your hardware inside the case, where here everything is one by one, it's individual pieces, but the most unique thing here is everything attached via magnets. So this giant black plate here is just a big magnet. We have these little magnets attachments on all types of hardware, so you can literally position your hardware components, your motherboard, your graphics card, your hard drives, your power supply, your cooling, your SSDs, your cable management strips, anywhere on this blank canvas, thus the name.
I love it. Everybody's on camera right now.
Oh, yeah. a little audience.
Say hello, everybody.
Hey!
So a few things to talk about are the actual magnetic points. There'll be different sizes. They're potentially thinking about expanding or adding more so you can have different height for the components when they're actually installed onto the canvas. For example, we have the SSD, but if you want to have it slightly higher away from the motherboard, you can add more and position it. And so the modularity aspect of this canvas is just absolutely insane. It's mind-boggling to think of how many cool things you can do with it, simply because you have this, the entire space to work with. These pieces are also going to be potentially expandable, so if you are placing a piece of glass here, you could expand it so you can have a radiator that does not interfere with the height clearance of these side pieces. The glass piece will cover here. It's all about the visual aesthetic. You can mount this on top of your monitor, not on top of your monitor, above your monitor, so that you can have this entire system showcased this way. Now, because this magnetic middle section is magnetic from both sides, you could potentially even spread out your hardware on two sides. Let's say having power supply on one side and having all these cables kind of wrap around the canvas, which is such a cool idea. Or you can have a different system on that side altogether. So the modularity, like I said, is completely just mind-boggling. Now, theoretically, each of these magnet points can support up to 2 kilograms of weight. So in terms of your hardware and things like that, it's not really an issue of supporting like really heavy power supplies or long radiators. And because we have this large section, you could do potentially cool water cooling builds. And they're also thinking about doing smaller sizes, something for a simple ATX motherboard and even ITX systems only, where it's going to be a lot smaller. For this size, they can fit 8 ITX motherboards on one side, which is insane. Imagine having like multiple power supplies on one side and have this really cool multi-system plate filled with hardware. That's amazing. So the only thing they have to kind of figure out now is really perfect the design in terms of how to do your cable management, because obviously you can mount your hardware and motherboards anywhere else on here, but how do you route the cables? So that is kind of like the main concern right now, and just making sure that you can do as much with these mounting points and little fan brackets that attach the power supply mount, for example, as much as possible, so that you have literally no compromise when it comes to mounting anything on the canvas. And so the idea and brainstorming can go on forever. So let us know what you think of this concept and how would you perfect it so that when you potentially buy this thing, you could get a perfect product. And the last two logistic elements are, this will be crowdfunded on Indiegogo, and they're thinking about $160 to $200 price points. And I think for something that's totally unique, it's very inspirational when it comes to building your own PC. I think that's a fair price point. So we'll leave a link down below where you can check out what this whole concept and the canvas is all about. All right, good people. So that is the Streacom DA2. Let us know what you think about it and the new canvas concept enclosure. It is fantastic. Let us know if you agree. Make sure to check out this other relevant content, and we'll see you in the next one. Woo!
Yeah.